our first guest in the studio this afternoon, and this morning. And you might be able to give us some some positive
feedback.
Vibes about her interview and her style, because we know that Tam has been a little bit nervous about coming in. But Tam, welcome to the Phatt and Phoenix FM, and what a great thing that it is that you've organised.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me. I feel like I'm in good company on my first radio appearance. So.
Yeah. Well, there's us. That's all you got. So.
No, I'm here.
Yeah. We'll battle on through, but we'll be fine, and you'll be fine because you're an expert in your field, and you're going to have a chat with us about this great award that you've organised for people with disability. Tam, tell us all about it.
Yeah. Unbound was created probably a few years ago, actually. It was a conversation with a person in the industry, the senior practitioner at the time in Victoria, saying that they collected a range of artworks for an award that they sponsor of people with intellectual disability. And they have about 30 or 40 artworks in their collection. And their passion was really to put it on the road and showcase the diversity of artists with disability. And so that sort of seeded my idea. I just moved to Bendigo and thought, what a great opportunity for us to take this regional. That's sort of how it really started. So from there, alongside actually having an exhibition of their artwork, I thought, what better way to get closer to the community in Bendigo and really, celebrate the diversity of artists that we have than setting up an award. And that's really the history. And the Unbound really comes from the notion that behind this, I really wanted to, encourage people to express themselves in a way that was really related to freedom of expression, to not be restricted or not be hampered through other people's perceptions around disability as well.
And the awards submissions have opened now and will be open until second week of January?
Yeah, that's right. So officially we opened on International Day of People with a Disability, so that was quite fitting in terms of timing, which again this year's International Day was focused around leadership of people with disability, and so I thought what a great way to open the awards. And yes, their submissions are actually open until 12th of January.
And so people who live in the Greater Bendigo area can enter into this. When you say Greater Bendigo area, what do you mean, like within the LGA of the council, or can it be broader than that?
Yeah, that's correct. So we've I put it out there, it's Greater Bendigo through the LGA regions, and there's more information on the website that lists all those suburbs, so people can look that up.
Yeah. I did want to mention that. I had a look at that on there where you do mention all the suburbs, and I thought, did you, Tam, have to sit down and type out all those individual suburbs? Because the amount of suburbs you've come up with in here, there's places that I didn't even realise were suburbs. There's so many names in there.
Well, I'm certainly learning about Greater Bendigo, and the power of Google is wonderful. So it was a real cut and paste exercise, but so had a bit of AI help along the way.
Yeah, okay. It's there's a lot of names in there, and it does take in Heathcote, heading down south, as far north as where Neilborough. Where else up there? There's so many names in there. I actually can't.
Yeah, well, goes up to Raywood.
Raywood, yeah.
Yep, and then naturally you've got Elmore.
Yeah. So this is a geography session.
It is.
But yeah.
Know your city.
I don't think I've ever seen anywhere list so extensively every single suburb. So Ladies Pass, where's Ladies Pass?
We'll find out, and hopefully those in Ladies Pass might want to call in and tell us where they're up to in terms of their creative work.
Yeah. I haven't heard of that. So yeah, well done on putting all that together. And so the type of art that can be entered into for this?
Yeah, there's some eligibility criteria, I guess. So obviously, having a lived experience of disability is obviously one of the biggest criterias. But obviously, we actually are exhibiting the artwork that is shortlisted at Dudley House, and that's going to happen from the 10th to 23rd of February. So, given the space, what we're looking for is hanging artwork, so really open to people that are creating works that are, via paint or print or digital or mixed media, anything that can be sort of framed and hung or is hang ready can be submitted.
Awesome.
They sound like art terms. Hang ready or can be hung, but hang ready, I haven't heard that before.
It's like hang loose, but not too loose.
That might be something I just made up, but I'm certainly not a creative myself. I enjoy the exploits of people that are creating, but that's my terminology.
Yeah. Well, it's always one of the conundrums, isn't it? Is, am I being clear enough? How do I express these things the right way?
Yeah.
But to me, look, it's pretty clear that someone living with a permanent disability, resident of Greater Bendigo, original artwork, and it must be able to be hung.
Yes. And if anyone has any questions and they would like a bit more information about it, obviously Tam is the person to reach out to. How do people reach out to you, Tam?
Yeah, there's an email address, unbound@shareddirection.com. And, on my website there's more information. There's a submission form as well and a bit of guidance.
Yeah. The timing of this, with the Frida Kahlo exhibition coming up, who had a disability, clearly you put some thought into this, Tam, which is not unlike you.
Yeah, I thought ideally we would have tried to get the space at Dudley House during the exhibition. However, I do see it as an important lead up to the exhibition that celebrates an artist from Mexico, an international artist who actually had a prosthetic and after a serious injury. And I know that in our community, this Frida Kahlo exhibit is really about her life story. So I thought it was really important that we showcase our regional artists who also have a disability and lived experience.
Yeah. There's a couple of major awards there. There's for emerging artists 25 years and under, and then an open artist for over 25 years. So I think that's good too, that you split it up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what prizes can be won by the winners?
Yeah, I really want to emphasise that these are real awards. We've been really fortunate. I think part of the concept of Unbound is very much around having businesses on board, our community on board, and obviously the creative industry on board, and also the network of artists with disability on board. So the awards are actually sponsored through some of our local businesses here. We have Amari in One Tree Hill promoting the $650 for the main prize winner. But alongside that, there's also the opportunity to exhibit further artwork that you might have at Amari as well. So that's really exciting. And I have to say there's highly commended awards for $250 as well, and hopefully that can support people's continued passion in this field.
Yeah. Brilliant. So some of the other organisations involved is Coffee Co. Bendigo Pride Festival, Grieve Built, and of course your own Shared Direction, which, a lot of these things will not happen if they're not backed by the corporate side and their involvement in community stuff. So it is important to have that along. We can't rely on government all the time for their handouts. So it's good to see that some of the local businesses have come on board to assist with this and see the value in it.
Yeah, and that's, I think, a little bit of a surprise to me, being fairly new to Bendigo, and obviously a long period of that being in COVID, so not being able to get out there, but connected with some great businesses who really appreciate and truly value inclusion. At the end of the day, you know, we have a large proportion of people with a disability who also like to go out to restaurants, cafes, to you know, go to entertainment and the like. So it's really supportive community and really showcasing their desire to ensure that we have inclusion within our local community and businesses.
Yeah, it's a really important conversation because you know that conversation happens quite a bit in regards to accessibility to get to these events. We haven't spoken historically very often about how do people with a disability get involved from the contributor side rather than just being the consumer. You know, we've talked about that and making sure that we've got access and all that sort of thing. But we see it a bit in the music industry as well. It's certainly a question that comes up quite often is in regards to accessibility for the consumer, but also now the conversation is turning a little bit, and people like Eliza Hull down in Castlemaine are driving that conversation to say, hey, there's all these artists with disability out there. And there's a television show about it now, I see.
Yeah, and I would also say that I'm not on the judging panel, so that's the other part. So really, the industry itself are judging the awards. So we have some great, as you said, artists with disability, and some people might be familiar with Sarah McQueenie. We also have John Willis, who supports the Create A.
We've had John in.
Oh, great!
On the show,
yeah. And we have a representation from Emporium Hub as well, and Bend Arts are also supporting the event as well.
Keith, make a note of that and put Sarah's name in your little notebook of people to reach out to. I used to go to school with Sarah, and I have been thinking for quite some time we need to get Sarah in here to have a chat with one of these shows. Are you writing that down?
Yeah.
No, you're not.
I'll remind you. Don't worry. Friday night. But you made a point around inclusion, and I think, you know, over the past 10 years there's been a huge change in our society around how we view disability, which is really an important conversation. So we're really looking about how we move from people's perceptions of disability being poor you and, you know, a health and medical issue to it actually being about social issues and barriers that are put up by people who just might behave or act or think or move differently to others. So having a local community on board, people are hopefully seeing more people out and about and as general citizens in our community.
Yeah.
I'm throwing to you, Keith. Are you ready?
Oh,
You've been
sorry.
warming up for a while over there.
Just me.
Chow down on your coffee.
I've been fascinated by the conversation. You two are carrying it really well. But it's important too to have these sort of awards and opportunities for people to, you know, I guess be embraced by the community and to give exposure to their abilities. Like you say, it's instead of, I guess, being limited by your disability, it's about saying, but everyone has abilities, and being able to give exposure to that, and being able to exhibit it, have it out there for the community to come along and have a look. I think that's an important step in it as well. Not just the award itself, but that actual exhibition. I think that'll be the real crowning glory of it.
Yeah, if I think about the proportion of people that do have a disability in our community, you know, you're looking at 1 in 5 people, and that's not touching the people that are around that person as well, parents, family, relatives, people that support them. So I think, the experience of disability is much broader than that, but there's a proportion of people that have a more profound, what's called a profound disability, which impacts more on how they live their life. And I think that's the important part of this, is to say, there's not putting any boundaries. So it's unbound. We're not putting boundaries on age or disability type. That could be anything from mental health to, physical disability, autism, whatever that vision impairment, other sensory impairment. So this is really about opening that up and saying we all have a diversity of talent, and I dare say that the artwork they create is probably better than mine and possibly your guys.
Guarantee it's better than mine.
Guarantee it's better than mine too. But that's it, and sometimes it's a thing where, yes, you might have limitations in one area, but that actually helps to expand your abilities in other areas, and the way they perceive things, and the artwork's likely to be produced. It's looking forward to seeing what the outcomes are of that.
And that might be a really good conversation with Sarah, and something we might want to showcase as part of the broader exhibition, which is how do people create artwork? If you've got an amputee, or you struggle to really focus on things, due to your cognition, what does that creation process really look like? And I'm sure it's a really different and really unique and really interesting experience for artists as well. I'm sure Sarah can speak to her creative process as well.
Yeah. One thing we talk quite a bit about on this show is that the value in connection and building connections as well. So there's possibly also that, because you're going to get people who then end up as the finalists or get their artwork hung on the wall sort of thing. They're all going to be there. They're going to meet other people, like-minded people who are also artists with a disability, that actually then they feel like they're part of something. They may feel like they're on their own doing this thing, and then you realise, hey, I'm part of a group. That connectivity is really important as well.
Yeah, it's a really interesting point, actually. I'm glad that you raised, because, again, what sits behind this is what I heard from talking to creatives in Bendigo in the disability space, was that they really saw what they were doing as something that they were doing as a bit of a hobby or a community, program, and didn't see themselves as artists. And so really excited about the opportunity to meet with people that are creating, to really encourage people, even if it's just a hobby or something you've done once, you really put it in and really try to connect the disability network with the creative network as well.
Yeah. All right. Well, we might have a listen to a couple of tracks, and then when we'll come back, we will talk probably a bit more in depth about disability, and you do a lot of work in that area, and there's certainly, it's something here. We're actually a finalist in an award through the Community Broadcasting Association for our engagement in disability, because we have so many shows that we accommodate people with disabilities and like. So, keen to talk about that a little bit more, but we'll listen to a couple of tracks first. You're listening to the Phatt on Phoenix FM, the voice of your community. We're chatting with Tamara Reinisch, who's here to talk about the Unbound Award for Artists with Disability. Phoenix FM, you're tuned into the Phatt. I nearly did it again, Keith. Wrong show name, but I got it right. So that last song was Holly Throsby with Aeroplane, and before that, Balladeer with In the Nebula. So a couple of really talented young Australian women who are getting music out there, and there's so many of them.
Heaps of them,
Keith.
Yeah, plenty of them.
Yeah, over 900 Australian release songs from 2024 I played on my other show this year.
900?
Over 900 Australian songs just released this year.
Yeah.
Anyway, staggering figure. So much great stuff out there. And talking of great stuff, we have Tam in the... Do you like that segue, Tam? We have Tam Reinisch in the studio chatting with us about the Unbound Award that Tam has pretty much set up on her own, with a lot of background assistance, but you're the driving force behind it.
Yeah, that's going to be my new hashtag, great stuff, on the
stuff.
website, I think. And I think the Unbound Award, it is great stuff to really showcase those that are creative that have a disability in our community.
Yeah. We were talking off air about, sort of the changing attitudes towards people with disability and the old school thinking of people with disability just won't be able to do that. Actually turning the conversation around, having a conversation at first with the people with disability to find out what they can do, rather than, and given all your work in this sector, it must be something that you're really passionate about to say, hey, let's not make a decision on people's behalf, let's have a conversation with them.
Yeah, and that's goes back to, about 25 years ago when I started working in the sector, and it was something that I was asked. I was working in another area in government and was asked to help out in the disability space. And I have to say my first reaction was, I know nothing about disability. I don't know anyone with a disability. So I don't have a lived experience of disability. And over time, what really, why I've stayed in the industry is because as a professional, that was the time that there started a real movement in terms of what we call person-focused, person-centred, and where people with a disability can make their own decisions, can, have choice in how they interact with people or use services or how they live their life. And that real driving force around people with disability are people like any of us. We are citizens in our country, and we all have a right to make decisions and have choice in our life, whatever that looks like.
Absolutely.
It feels like it's such a no-brainer now that should just be the conversation that you're having rather than how it used to be. But it's a bit like the old thing of people never used to wear seatbelts sort of thing. Once you sort of realise, hey, why weren't we doing this before?
Yeah.
Then it becomes, you wonder how you didn't for that long have a good conversation with people.
Yeah, and I think we've seen a real changing landscape, and that creates a conundrum in our society in terms of, how we progress and move from one where people were behind closed doors and it was, sort of not as visible in our community or not as acknowledged, to now where we're really really wanting to make sure we have an inclusive society. And I think the other challenge I've seen, which is one we're facing now, which is we've got varying differences around disability and how people like to identify and be acknowledged. We have in autistic people, it's very much around they want to claim that space and really shout out where I have autism, and whereas others are sort of, still looking at, well, no, we shouldn't even be using the term disability. I think for those listeners who maybe don't have as exposure or lived experience or know people with disability, it can create a bit of tension in terms of how do I react and what are my biases. And if you think of yourself, when you see someone that has a disability that's quite visible, or you might hear someone vocalising which is making noises or something related to their disability, do you stare, do you look, do you ignore it? I think more and more, at the end of the day, we're people and we should be curious, and it's okay to feel those differences around not sure what to do or how to respond. I think the best thing, if you're in those situations, is, let's not hide it. Let's have the conversation, talk to that person as well.
Absolutely.
There's probably resources out there for people, and I certainly know through one of our other platforms, Keith, one of our members recently sent us a link so that we could actually find out a little bit more.
Yeah.
And so there's probably those resources. I'm possibly putting you on the spot here, Tam, but are you able to sort of guide people to where they might be able to find out more information, to do a bit of research himself and maybe get past some of those biases that they've grown up with?
I think one of the changing shapes in our society has also been the NDIS as well. And I know that on the NDIS Quality and Safeguards Commissioners, they've got videos there that are free for people to access around engagement, and there are a few around. So that's a national platform people can access. But I'm sure if you Google, there's some great videos just around engaging with people with disabilities to get that tip. And they're really, really helpful. Having done some of them myself, it just gives you a bit of an understanding of what disability is, what that can look like, and how and the diversity of disability, how that might be different in other people. The other thing I'd like to mention is, I don't know what you're thinking when we're talking disability, and maybe you've conjured up an image in your head, but actually a large proportion of our society are actually over 65 and acquire a disability as well, and it's really important not to forget that. So when we're talking about accessibility and inclusion, we're looking at, from, sort of cradle to grave. Don't want to be morbid, but, we're talking about the whole spectrum, that people might be born with a disability, or it might be something that's happened over an accident, or it could be something that due to ageing that you've acquired some challenges in, say, mobility or sensory capacity as well.
Yeah, I'm sure Anne won't mind me mentioning this, but Anne, who's the driving force behind Phoenix FM and has been for quite some time, has had an acquired disability regarding her voice and her ability to speak clearly, and as a result, through she does a program here called Koori Shout Out, and they do the Koori News. She's actually using voice to text, text to voice. Around that way, now to help her present that. So being able to use some of those technologies too that are now available is making it easier for people to not feel like they're, everyone's going, listen to Anne with her, difficulty speaking.
Yeah, and technology, I guess, is a benefit of our generation. I used to work when I was with the NDIA in the innovation space, and there's some great programs of founders with disability who've experienced barriers or challenges, and they've actually part of the design of new technology and assistive equipment because of what they've experienced to develop something new that helps them overcome some of the barriers that we face in society. But I have to admit, we talk about disability, but I think the other and inclusion, and that's great. The other part of this is how we talk about universal access, that, we really put things in place that enable anyone to use it, whether it's about because you have a disability or whether maybe you're a migrant come to the country and you've got literacy issues. I think some of these, or maybe like me, you're just a bit lazy and using or I'm driving and I'm trying to be efficient, so I'll use read aloud on my phone so I can listen to things. I think universally these technologies that are evolving are incredibly useful in our society, and I hope helps close the gap between people with disability and us as citizens, all of us as citizens.
Absolutely.
Well, I don't think, Tam, that lazy is a word that very often is in the same sentence as Tam.
No.
But
no, well, so people entries go via your website for the award, shareddirection.com.
shareddirection.com and /art. So there's a very specific page for people to read all the information about the guidelines and download the submission form. There's also a brochure on there, so please feel free to promote it to those in your network if you're connected with people that might be interested in submitting. We hope to get a lot of people who are just creatives wanting to just put their hat in the ring, I would say.
Well, thank you so much, Tam. We're going to have to go to the news and weather, but get your entries in. You can reach out to us if you need to, and we can point you in the right direction. Thank you, Tam. It's been fantastic.
Thanks, Tam. You've done well.